Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 9. Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, forgiveness. It's absolutely the cornerstone of the work that I do is forgiveness. And it's not necessarily a Christian practice. A lot of times when you hear forgiveness, you think, oh, that is rooted in a specific religious tradition. And it's not. And today I want to talk a little bit about self-forgiveness, which is the hardest thing of all. When I work with people, one of the things I encounter most often is just how tough people are on themselves. So much self-judgment. So much sort of going over the past, regret, reproach, why did I do this? I made this mistake, etc. There are no mistakes. No mistakes. I remember once, a couple of years ago, I was on an ayahuasca retreat, and I remember Mother Aya, Mother Nature, however you want to think of her, the Divine Mother, speaking to me through the plant medicine, said to me, "There's no free will." And I was like, what? Free will? Oh, come on, no free will. I mean, that's everything, right? That's a huge part of what people talk about in spirituality, free will and sovereignty and having control and responsibility. She said, no, you misunderstand. Of course, you have all of these options, but misunderstanding free will means that you can make mistakes, like that there's a right path and a wrong path. She said, if you think about there's no free will, that everything that you could do is written as a possibility, and that all of it's okay because you're all being held by the divine, then there are no wrong choices. Now, there's some choices that might lead to pain, and there's some choices that might lead to pain for others. And definitely, we are learning to act from love and not from hate or fear. But when you take the judgment, right and wrong, out of the equation, and you just take responsibility for these were actions, they were born from particular reactions. I had emotions, I had thoughts, I had beliefs. They generated reactions to things, what Buddhists would call causes and conditions. And something happened and there are consequences, and now I'm responsible for facing those consequences. And you take right and wrong out of it. Then forgiveness becomes really easy, because forgiveness is rooted in the idea that what you did was wrong. Now, it can also be misunderstood. I'm not saying that you don't recognize that there's an impact to other people, that there is pain inflicted on other people. Maybe you did something that caused somebody else a great deal of pain. You recognize it. But forgiveness is not about recognizing what happened. Forgiveness is about recognizing what happened then and why. When we don't forgive, we're actually no longer in the past. All we're doing is carrying this around in the present moment. We're continuing to flagellate ourselves for something that happened a long time ago. We're recreating the past in the present as an act of self-judgment and self-flagellation. Now, why am I talking about this in a series where I'm talking about staying present to politics and the pandemic? Well, there may be things that you've done that you now look back and go, that was a mistake, voting for Trump. Or maybe not. Who knows? But there may be things that you've done in the past few years politically that relate to politics, things that you didn't do that you now look back and say, oh, I wish I had done. Maybe you'd wish you'd done more. Maybe you wish you had protested. Maybe you wish you had spoken up. Maybe you wish you hadn't said something to somebody about politics in a moment of real anger. Maybe when it came to the pandemic, maybe you were early on quick to dismiss. You did something and now you wonder, oh, did my actions affect somebody else? Did I affect somebody else's health? Could I be doing more? Could I be more vigilant? Learn the lesson and be present, because when we're not forgiving of ourselves, we're recreating ourselves from that past moment without having learned the lesson that we were supposed to learn, without really understanding the causes and conditions that led us to act in particular ways. So release that part of you, release that old self that doesn't exist, but you're just carrying around, just hammering away at. And you'll find that when you've learned a lesson, you're like, oh, this is why I did what I did. Oh, this is the wound that was sort of triggered, or this was the emotional pain that was actually really being expressed in that moment when I said something and it was deeply hurtful to somebody else, or acted out of fear. You recognize it. You're like, great. Now you know. You've learned. The pain became information that you now can incorporate. You can release yourself from that burden, that prison that you continue to create for yourself. And then you can be present rather than being in creation of an old self, which is what you're doing when you don't forgive yourself. So just take a moment, take a deep breath with me. And just tune into something that you know that you haven't forgiven yourself for. Maybe it's big, maybe it's something you've done a long time ago. And just recall what happened. You might feel the emotions churning up in your body. Shows you that they're still with you. You're just carrying around this piece of you from the past. Notice where you judge yourself, what you did or didn't do. Notice what kind of emotional energy you bring with that judgment. Judge yourself as weak, as flawed, not strong enough. Do you have an identity around it? Ooh, I'm such a bad person. I'm so hateful. I'm so mean. Whatever it is, just notice what story you tell yourself about who you are, what meaning that event had. And just feel that. Be present to it. This is where what we've done before, the alchemy of acceptance, you just let that energy be there without pushing it away, without repeating and identifying it. Oh, yes, I was a terrible person when I did that. Did that then. Why did you do it? See if you can ask that part of you, that younger self, the version of you that you're still judging and you're still punishing. What did you do? See if you get an answer. And just hear whatever answer it is that you get from that portion of yourself. And this is a practice you might have to repeat many times depending on how tough you've been on this part of you, how much this event is still really charged in your life. And then just acknowledge and be grateful that you've got some answer. You're dialoguing right now with your own pain. This part of you. And just imagining this version of yourself, go ahead and release the words. I forgive you. I release you. I love you. Some combination, some phrasing that says to you, It's okay. And then to yourself, really say to yourself, I forgive myself. Forgive and release myself for what I did. Those words, just uttering the words, forgive myself, are performative. They do the act of forgiving. You might have to repeat them again and again. If you want to do this as a prayer, I highly, highly recommend it as a prayer. Sometimes it can be really helpful to just acknowledge how difficult forgiveness is and just say to yourself, God, infinite light, divine mother, divine light, spirit, universe, my higher self, whatever connection you want to make with something that outside of yourself, outside of the small self, say, please help me forgive and release myself. Please help me love and be at peace with myself for this act, for this deed, this thought. And you'll know how powerful it is when you just feel that sense of judgment and reproach, self-flagellation kind of just fading from your body. We've got to do this because we actually judge ourselves quite a bit. And in the world that we're living right now, we probably are judging ourselves for a lot of things related to what's happening, particularly with the pandemic, where you might be at emotionally, physically, mentally, whether your physical health has suffered, the stress. You might be judging yourself for not being more resilient, for not being more productive, for not being more organized, for needing a lot of self-care, for feeling anxious. You might be judging yourself. Forgive yourself for all of those emotional states. Because it's all okay and it's all normal. So keep on practicing, stay present, love yourself, and forgive yourself. I'll see you tomorrow.